Support for CFO Thought Leader comes from Plantful and U.S. Bank.
Hi, this is Jeff Noto, the CFO of Zayo, and you're listening to the CFO Thought Leader Podcast.
This is episode 1046.
It comes down to creating a really good partnership with not just your CEO, but your chief product officer, your chief revenue officer, your chief people officer. Each of those partnerships is so important. We talk about it at Vanta as the first team. We need to support each other. We need to lift each other up. It's not like, hey, my finance organization is at odds with this other organization. It is, how do the C-levels band together to bring Vanta to the next level? And I think having that mindset, realizing this is my first team, is really important in delivering great outcomes.
Hi, it's Jack. On today's episode, we speak with David Eckstein, CFO of Vanta. When David Eckstein inherited a struggling business unit earlier in his career, there was little question he was about to face a daunting battle. And yet, the unit wasn't one Eckstein had built, nor had he any involvement in developing its frameworks or discounting policies. Who was responsible? And shouldn't this problem child belong to someone else? These are two questions Eckstein never asked. In the end, Eckstein hasn't regaled us with an exciting turnaround tale. Instead, he simply tells us he took ownership of the unit and demonstrated accountability where there had been none. It's a mindset he urges others to adopt. You'll hear that story and much more on today's episode. We'll begin after this. Ready to plan confidently, close faster, and report more accurately? Here's what sets Plantful apart. Imagine purpose-built applications for every department, from FP&A to accounting, marketing to HR, all with built-in financial intelligence. It's easy to implement Plantful in just weeks and with minimal IT involvement, so you can rapidly and seamlessly engage everyone across the business on your key financial progress. Best of all, Plantful grows with you. Its unparalleled scalability ensures that no matter how fast your business expands, Plantful can keep up. See why over 1,500 customers worldwide choose Plantful as their flexible, user-friendly, end-to-end financial performance management platform. Go to plantful.com/CFO Thought Leader to see how you can reach peak financial performance with Plantful. Hello, we're speaking with David Eckstein, CFO of Vanta. David, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Jack.
David, as always, we're going to ask you to take a look back in time for us. And what we're interested in are those experiences you feel prepared you to become a finance leader, to become a CFO. What would come to mind for you?
I could begin anywhere, but I would say I've always had this interesting blend of financial investment banking experience married with this entrepreneurial spirit. As early as I could remember, I was trying to start businesses, whether it was shining people's shoes in my house and charging them a quarter, or starting a pillow making business when I was 5 years old and hiring my friends to run around the neighborhood and sell these pillows that I was making, to the music locker startup that I started at Washington University in St. Louis, which was, my first foray into cloud software. Then married that with my drive towards mental math. I was always helping my father calculate sales commission rates when we were in the car, and he was having me attend one of his business trips. And eventually that led to a career in investment banking, where I worked at Barclays Capital for several years. But when I was at Barclays, I realized that I was missing out on the value creation. I wanted to go closer to where the decisions were being made, and I felt like the IPO process was more towards the end of that value creation, far removed from the critical decisions that were happening early in the company's formation that would allow it to reach the heights of a potential IPO. And so I set out to move west and learn more about how to build a company, how to create something from scratch. And I was lucky enough to get a role at Box, where I was the third or fourth person on the finance team. We had this amazing CFO, Dylan Smith, who was one of the co-founders of the company. And his approach was he would take input from anywhere, as long as the person had the experience or the conviction to push something through. And so given that I was the only ex-investment banker on the team, I had a front row seat for about $500 million in equity and debt raises, and he included me on a lot of the IPO journey, which was awesome. And then the final piece, which I would definitely recommend for anyone who is exploring a role in a finance leadership role, is surround yourself with people who believe in you. And so I had an amazing mentor and boss at Box, Jennifer Saran, who ended up becoming the CFO of Smartsheet and now serves on a lot of great boards, including Klaviyo and Flock Safety. But when I moved from Box to OpenDNS, I got to work with someone who was not only an amazing CEO, David Ulevich, but also a very close personal friend. And so David Ulevich brought me on board, helped the company scale roughly 2x in a year, and then we found ourselves in an acquisition process. And he and I went around, spoke to a variety of different potential acquirers, and then eventually consummated that deal. And so I would say it was a unique blend of interest in entrepreneurism, experience in finance, and then finally the third piece of the puzzle is finding people who will believe in you and lift you up.
Well, wonderful overview for us. Thank you. Was it always finance? Could you become a chief strategy officer? Did you flirt with certain ideas or other paths to the C-suite?
I have to be honest with you, I've always known that this is the direction that I wanted to go in. I have an amazing, wonderful Jewish mother who has often pushed me to think, hey, like, you have great ideas or you have this conviction, you should be a CEO. But the truth is, I'm having so much fun. I love what I do. I love telling a story through numbers. I love building great teams. I love getting numbers to be extremely accurate. I love testing myself. And for me, this path to a CFO has been unbelievably gratifying. It's something that I want to continue to do for multiple decades to come. I've had different hats at different times. I've run HR, I've run facilities, I've run sales operations, I've run legal. And I would call that like extra credit on top of the CFO role. But I've always been committed to, being the best that I can be in the CFO position that I'm in.
You along the way, and you mentioned a few of your mentors and people that were important. You created quite a powerful network, right? Is this a skill set you developed early in your career? Were you always able to network well? I suspect yes. But what is it?
It's a great question, Jack. To be honest, I don't like to give myself a pat on the back. And so what I would say is I've been very fortunate that a lot of amazing people have come into my life. And when you meet these people, you're not sizing them up. You're not trying to figure out what can you get out of the relationship. It's just, I've always been drawn towards people who push me in different ways, who make me think differently. And as long as I'm taking a lot of swings at the bat, eventually you're going to connect with the ball. And so whether it was Jennifer Saran at Box, who eventually became the CFO of Smartsheet, or David Ulevich, who was the CEO of OpenDNS, who is now a general partner at Andreessen Horowitz. Also, when I was working at OpenDNS, my CFO was Bert Podbear. And Bert Podbear, his next job after OpenDNS was he became the CFO of CrowdStrike, where he's been for 9 or 10 years. And so I've tried to create my own personal board of directors. It doesn't matter what position you're in. It's from all different walks of life. Some of them are investors in companies. Some of them are operators in companies. Some of them have the CFO title. Some have the CEO title. Some have the CSO title. But I try to surround myself with people who push me to think differently. And as a result, I feel like I've lived multiple lives, and I've had to make a lot more decisions than the typical person who's had my career journey or has the number of years on this planet as I do. And I've really benefited from that.
Now, where was it? Where did you enter the CFO office for the first time? What company was that?
So after we sold OpenDNS to Cisco, I was at Cisco for a while running cloud security finance, which was about a $250 million business unit. And I was advising a company on the side called Menlo Security. And they were early in their journey. They were in the networking security business, or still are in. They still are in the network security business. They focus on internet isolation. And I had formed a partnership with the CEO. I had advised the company for about a year. I helped them through a fundraise. They got to see the value that I would bring to the table, and I got to understand the CEO's drive, his ambition, his integrity, and it was a perfect fit. And so I was fortunate enough to join the company when they were single-digit ARR. I believe a couple months ago, they just announced that they crossed 100 million ARR. And so that was my first position as a CFO. I was there for roughly 5 years, learned a lot from the experience. It was an awesome, awesome partnership.
And I think if we were to look at the skill set that really distinguished you along the way, it might be your storytelling ability. Correct me. I'm just taking a wide guess, but you were somebody who could very early on perhaps explain the story via the numbers and have a wider audience understand the potential of a business. How am I doing?
I think I got to the position that I'm in today because of an insatiable drive. I am always willing to take on more. I'm always willing to learn more. I am fairly flexible in my process. And so if someone brings a new idea or somebody has a new benchmark, I try to understand that benchmark. And then if it makes sense, I embrace it. And then the third thing is I try to leverage all the experience that I had leading up to this point. So whether it's through full-time roles as running finance at OpenDNS, CFO at Menlo Security, or some of my investing work. I've invested in dozens of companies and I learned from each of those experiences, or I've advised nearly a dozen companies and I've learned from each of those experiences. And so I think I got to the position I'm in today because I feel like I've lived a lot of lives and I bring that all to the table. And I try to lead with those experiences or with those benchmarks when I start a conversation. I do think storytelling is a big part of it, but more than storytelling, I think it's backing up the story with compelling numbers that are accurate, numbers that are precise, and numbers that really encapsulate the potential that that company is pursuing.
There was one box that needed to be checked, though, before you moved into the CFO office. There was one experience that had escaped your lines of sight over the years for whatever reason, and that was tax. No. What was it? Was there one box that you had to check at the end? What would that have been?
So I started my career in investment banking. That was a great technical boot camp. And that was a very general education, general overview on all the different financing pathways to think at a 30,000 foot level on how to run a company. But then you have to double click on that and really understand the guts that a company faces when they make trade-offs, when they make decisions. And then when I was at Box, I really focused on investor relations, treasury, and capital markets. Now, the missing piece for me at that time was FP&A, was making those trade-offs, making those tough decisions, creating a process, creating a framework to understand if we do this, then we can't do that, or we can't fund all three projects. Now choose the two at the highest ROI. And OpenDNS provided that opportunity to really think critically about our investment areas. Now, the unchecked box for me is I'm an accounting minor, and I lean heavily on an amazing accounting team around me in order to meet the challenges that we need to do on the accounting side of the house. So whether it's accounting audits, tax, international accounting, payroll, I've been very lucky that I've worked with some amazing, amazing controllers, VPs of accounting, and chief accounting officers. And I think that partnership and that combination helps the company scale.
Nice. Well, thank you for a great overview and answering some of my additional questions there, David. Trying to crack the mystery here. And I think you revealed quite a bit to us, so we appreciate it. We want to find out now about Vanta. Tell us about this company and what are its offerings today?
Absolutely. And I would say at the heart of that, we are all having a lot of fun. And I think every single day, every Vantan gets to wake up and we get to create a category. We get to win market share. We get to delight our customers. So at the heart of what we do, we sit at the intersection of compliance and security in a space that we created called trust management. And trust management spans the entire spectrum that companies need to do to monitor, to improve, and demonstrate their trust. We originally created the automated compliance category in 2018, and that would help companies get compliant in weeks, not months, via frameworks like SOC 2, ISO 27001, HIPAA, GDPR. Today, we have roughly 30 different certifications that we offer on the platform. Having been the CFO at Menlo Security, head of finance at OpenDNS, working on the team at Box, I have lived this firsthand, where at your board meeting, you take a victory lap and you say, hey, we just renewed our SOC 2 certification. Because back then, it was unbelievably painful. You had a team of 5 people working on it. It would take 6 to 9 months just to renew your certification. And so, of course, this is something you would tout because it would allow you to crack into verticals or sell to certain customers. And so Vanta is not just a solution that brings great visibility and security to your company, but it also is seen as a revenue accelerant. And I think our results speak volumes. In the past year and a half, we announced that we crossed 100 million ARR in just 5 years after entering the market. We raised a $150 million Series C round at a $2.45 billion valuation. We nearly doubled our customer base to over 8,000 companies, including leading enterprises like Atlassian, Intercom, Omni Hotels. We're experiencing massive international growth. We grew our international customer base by 90% year over year. And today, roughly 1 in 4 customers are headquartered outside the United States. Finally, we're now over 500 Vantans around the world. And I got to be honest with you, we're just getting started.
So as you stepped into the role in February 2023, since that time, what this finance function, what have you tweaked? What have you done? Has it expanded? Has it reorganized in some fashion? What would you share?
When I entered Vanta, I was entering a company that valued the finance and accounting function, but it had never prioritized it in the sense that they didn't have a leader to run the entire function. And so the first step I had to do was to redefine the role. What is our role as finance and accounting? And we had to shift expectations from we are reactive, we will fight the fires that are already there, to a more proactive view. And we did that through establishing key deliverables. So what should you expect from the accounting and finance team on a weekly, on a monthly basis, so that we would A, surface that information, B, become a partner in various decisions that were being made, but also become a really critical source of truth. So the 4 key deliverables that we established were the sales weekly analysis, the FP&A monthly reporting, the collection reporting, and then the marketing ROI. The sales weekly analysis was is still an 8-page PowerPoint that basically shows all the sales that have been done so far this month, who's on the Hall of Fame, which is the big deal slide, what are we seeing in terms of win rates, ACVs, average contract value, where have we lost deals due to churn, and so it just gives a really holistic snapshot. So the sales team, the engineering team, Christina, our CEO, can point to this and realize this is where we stand from an ARR perspective. The second key deliverable was the FP&A monthly meetings. So historically, Vanta had not sat down with every org leader on a monthly basis to go over the different spend areas, how we're tracking according to our headcount plan, how are we spending in terms of discretionary asks, contractor asks. And so the FP&A monthly meeting was to establish an organized way to relay how are we trending on an expense side of the house so that we can move the necessary levers to come in within plan or consciously double down where we're seeing a lot of opportunity. The third area, collection reporting, because we have over 8,000 customers and we're renewing thousands of customers every single quarter, it was extremely important to understand, are the payments coming in? How late are these payments? Really becoming a partner to our customers so that we can help them make payments on a timely basis. And then the final piece, and I call this quantifying the qualitative, it's taking a very high-level problem or something that really needs a lot of assumptions pulled out or a lot of numbers pulled out, in this case, marketing ROI, and figuring out, okay, great, we want to make a bet on podcasts or we want to make a bet on billboards. What is the ROI that we're seeing in that area or related areas? And it's always hard with marketing attribution, but we did our best to establish some type of marketing ROI analysis so that we can hang our hat on that as we look to double down in certain areas and grow our pipeline. And then the final piece, it all comes back to the team. So when I joined Vanta, it was really important to understand what are people's career aspirations, what do they enjoy doing, where do they want to be challenged, where do they want to take their career in the long term, and I need to find ways to give them those opportunities to help them grow.
Wow, wonderful overview there as well. About that FP&A approach that you outlined briefly for us, were there any assumptions you made up front that changed along the way? Are you keeping that component just the way you intended?
So on the FP&A side of the house, there wasn't really a process built out in terms of how do we set the annual operating plan, as well as how do we adhere to that annual operating plan throughout the year. And the next AOP that we did, which was last year's annual operating plan, we were much more deliberate in where we put headcount, how much we invested into each organization. And the way to do that is to do a historical analysis first, figuring out what's working, what's not working, where should we shift dollars, where do we need to make the right investment to double down on our product roadmap and some opportunity that we're seeing, whether it's upmarket, international, you name it. And then from an FP&A perspective, again, we had to build this from scratch. And so we took that very large annual operating plan and we broke it down into 10 or 12 sub budgets. And on a monthly basis, we sit down with every org leader. We build that trust. We walk them through how they're spending according to plan. And we help them understand what levers they have to come in at, below, or above plan in a purposeful way. And I think that's a really important process and muscle to build, because it's not just about reporting the numbers. It's about building trust. And when you are seen as not a policeman or policewoman, but you're seen as a strategic enabler, I need to go to David's organization if I want to move in this direction, that brings you into the conversation a lot earlier.
Thank you for that. I want to ask you about AI and finance. And again, there's the whole offerings that Vanta has. Obviously, AI is going to be part of that world. But the finance, the world that you just outlined for us, how is AI going to change what, your priorities are there, how your approach is there? What are you thinking when you're having these types of discussions?
I'm glad you brought up the topic of AI, because I feel like it is everyone's first question. And I think it's a very good question. I think it's too soon to see this really in the finance and accounting stack. I get pinged all the time from venture capitalists saying, hey, what is Vanta thinking about embracing? Or how are you thinking about building out your tech stack? And we look at a lot of different tools. And today, I think a lot of tools bring incremental value. I'll talk about a couple tools in a second, but I would say it might be too soon to see the real value in AI being mainstream in our solutions. Like, I'd absolutely love to see NetSuite roll out some AI-driven tool. I think we are seeing, because I own the entire company budget and I see where we're making AI investments in different solutions, we are seeing more success on the sales side of the house. There are a number of sales tools that have rolled out, whether it's Decagon or Clay, that are helping sales reps find leads, close leads a lot faster. I do think that finance and accounting, they're usually the last team to get budget for new solutions. One, because we have to do what it says on the tin, and we need to make sure that we're really being scrupulous and making sure we're making the right investments. And so we haven't deployed any accounting or finance AI solution yet. Now, I did see one the other day, Maxima, and Maxima helps expedite the close process, which I find extremely useful. Today, it's something that I often think about as the CFO of Vanta. How can we close the process faster? How can we bring more people into the conversation? How do we double check all the different journal entries that we're putting together? And so I'm watching Maxima closely. Now, switching gears for a second, Vanta is really critical to our success in both delivering AI-powered solutions and also helping teams prepare for the future. So throughout our platform, we made that investment quite a while ago. I remember having a board meeting where our board member said, there's no doubt that AI is the future. It's kind of like the question 10 years ago about the shift to the cloud. Everyone will shift to the cloud. Everyone will shift to AI. And so the sooner you embrace it, the better your organization will be. One, from an efficiency perspective, but two, from the value that you're delivering to your customers. And so our Vanta AI significantly reduces the manual, repetitive tasks that are hampering security teams, freeing them up to focus on their most strategic work. We were the first to deliver the NIST AI framework and the ISO 42001, which helps organizations with the safe and responsible development and usage of AI. And one key point is we do not train our AI models on customer data. We use a combination of self-hosted models as well as the ones that are available from industry-leading third-party platforms. But one specific AI solution that we rolled out, which I think is really helping our customers, is our questionnaire automation tool. So essentially, organizations often have to fill out 100 questions for security RFPs. And we offer a solution called Trust Centers, which is a way of demonstrating your security posture, your security documentation. And so with Vanta, customers like Zoom Info answer up to 95% of their customer security questionnaires via AI and our automation. Smart recruiters, they're saving 20 hours per week with streamlined security review process. So this goes back to the prior conversation, which is we are turning security from a, ensure that you protect your job, ensure that you have longevity at the company, to how can I accelerate revenue for my sales team? And by answering these security questionnaires, the IT team, the security team, all of a sudden becomes the sales hero.
Nice. Thank you for that. We're going to move forward and jump to what we refer to as our finance strategic moment question. And what we're looking for is one moment of insight that you've experienced. We know you already have had a few of these today, but we're just looking for a moment of insight that you experienced that allowed you to open a door, swing open a door, avoid a risk, whatever it may have been. What comes to mind when we ask for a finance strategic moment?
I feel like every day a CFO or finance person is being faced with tough decisions. And so I could probably give you 10 from every single company that I was lucky enough to work with. But I think it'll be juicier if we give a tough decision, right? I'm not going to mention the company name because I don't think this is the most wonderful story for this company. All I will say is it's not Vanta. And so what happened at this company was I inherited a business unit. It's not a company that I had built or had created the different frameworks or the discounting policies. But when I inherited it, the company was losing a lot of money. And I think the first step was trying to figure out, why was the company losing a lot of money? Was it due to high commissions? Was it due to something in the support costs? No. It turns out that the gross margin for this business was actually negative. And it was due to a variety of different issues. But the strategic moment was realizing that it was gross margin negative and then developing an action plan to reverse that trend. And so the first step was break out the large cost of goods sold into the various components. What was driving this outcome and what was driving the low revenue? So the first point we discovered was there was absolutely no control over the discounting. One person had full control over if they gave an 80% discount or a 20% discount. And so that was obviously something that we could fix pretty quickly with different levels and different thresholds that different people would be brought into the discounting conversation. The second bit, and this is something that I've done at now every company that I've worked at, is understanding the cost to serve. What people are tagged to COGS? What are the infrastructure costs? Are we capitalizing R&D? What does it cost to serve a customer? Break it out into the different components. And this particular company that I inherited didn't even capitalize their R&D. And so it was a pretty quick analysis. The first step was figuring out who was tagged to COGS. Was that correct, or should they be tagged to other departments? It turns out that they had not reevaluated what those engineers or technical support people had been working on in the past 2 years. And so we did some retagging there. But at the end of the day, the headcount investment that was made was way too large given the revenue. And then finally, I would say a very key lesson, a strategic moment or a strategic insight there was take responsibility for every part of the business. So just because you inherited the business doesn't mean it's not yours. And you shouldn't be thinking in terms of, this isn't mine. I didn't build it, therefore it's not my problem. You need to embrace change and you need to embrace the outcome. And so I think it's really important that even though it's not something that you asked for, it's okay. And then you just need to take responsibility. And that's the only way to create ownership and drive that outcome.
Are you tired of manual, fragmented, and time-consuming expense management processes? Then the U.S. Bank Commercial Rewards Card might be right for your business. More than just a card, it's an all-in-one card, expense, and travel management solution that replaces outdated expense management methods with a single intuitive platform. Specifically designed to scale with your growing business, it provides the control and real-time insights into spend that you need. It integrates with your existing tools, lets you set custom spend policies, captures all expenses automatically, and liability is kept at the corporate level. Employees can even book travel right in the platform. You also get to choose your rewards, either points or rebates, all while saving money with no annual fee. So why wait? Manage your cash flow better and streamline your business operations today with the U.S. Bank Commercial Rewards Card. Visit usbank.com/CFO to learn more. David, we're going to enter the mentoring round where we begin by asking you to look back again. And what we're wondering is when you first stepped in to a CFO role for the very first time, there must have been some piece of advice that you wish someone had given you now that you look back upon it. What is it that you might tell yourself if you could go back in time?
So if I could go back in time, and it was the first 60 days in the Vanta role again, I think thing that I would encourage a younger version of David to do is to embrace change. So Christina, my CEO, gave me this feedback. I think it's amazing. Is just because something is set up a certain way when you entered doesn't mean we shouldn't change it. So lead with your experiences, lead with your expertise, and challenge the assumptions. So this is a low-hanging fruit, but I remember talking to Christina a couple days before sales QBR, and I said, look, at my last company, we tried to bring all the C-levels to the sales QBR because we learn and we share. And there's information that the salespeople are coveting that pertain to finance or pertain to engineering. And it's super important to make that full round trip. And so I remember talking to her on a Sunday and saying, in my prior roles, the CFO would be at the sales QBR. And she said, that's great, David. Then you should be there. And so I think I had the first flight out on Tuesday and I was at the sales QBR. And now every single C-level and basically every single VP go to the sales QBR because there's so many round trips that we need to take out of that critical meeting where all the sales managers are together, where we're sharing ideas, where we are developing playbooks. And I'm really proud of that result because we did challenge the assumptions and I do think it's gotten a better result. So the feedback that I would have to myself is challenge everything, lead with your experiences, and just because something was done a particular way before doesn't mean we shouldn't improve upon the process.
I want you to, I'd love to have you reflect a little bit on CFO leadership versus CEO leadership, just because what you shared with us up front about your mom, and somehow you were like, no, I know what I want to do. I want to lead as a finance person. CFO leadership versus CEO leadership. Share some reflections. And I think you just shared something. You have a great chemistry, I think, with this CEO, and that's another thing that's interesting.
CFOs must be active participants in order to achieve that chemistry.
If you have any thoughts on that as well. Yeah.
I think each of our roles is uniquely challenging. I admire Christina and my prior CEO's ability to understand the full picture, how the product investment today is turning into marketing collateral tomorrow, which is leading to enhance pipeline the day after, which is leading to higher conversion rates or more closed won. And I get a piece of that as the CFO. I'm more towards the end of that spectrum, very results oriented. And I try to understand the broader investment in engineering. But I think a CEO's job is to figure out what that 5-10 year vision is, and then have everyone move in that direction together. And my role as the CFO is to help identify the different levers that we have to play with and help execute on that vision. So I don't think one role is better than the other role, which is why I'm super content in the CFO position that I'm in today. And for the foreseeable future is the only role that I want going forward. And I think it comes down to creating a really good partnership with not just your CEO, but your chief product officer, your chief revenue officer, your chief people officer. Each of those partnerships is so important. We talk about it at Vanta as the first team. We need to support each other. We need to lift each other up. It's not like, hey, my finance organization is at odds with this other organization. It is, how do the C-levels band together to bring Vanta to the next level? And I think having that mindset, realizing this is my first team, is really important in delivering great outcomes.
Oh, all right. Thank you, David. When we always like to ask our guests to reflect a little on the personal side. We're wondering if there's something over the time many of your colleagues might not have known about you, some interest that you have, some earlier pursuit. What would you share with us? Is there something a lot of people don't know about you?
I try to be an open book. So I think a lot of people know a lot about me because I think that is really important to creating meaningful relationships. It's bringing your authentic self to work and opening up so that people realize you're not just this role, but you're also a person. So two things that I've shared with the other Vantans very proudly is, one, I set a goal for myself last year to run 500 miles. And we turned it actually into a sales strategy towards the end of the year as we were racing to achieve certain outcomes for the business, achieve new milestones. I created this company goal. We called it Put It on the Wheel. So if you're at the end of a soul cycle and it's the last 5 minutes or 3 minutes of the class, they say, okay, like put it on the wheel, whatever your fears are, whatever your hopes are, whatever your problems are, put it on the wheel, just power through. And so as a company, we put it on the wheel. This is while I was trying to achieve my own personal milestone. And so I got past the 500-mile goal, I think in the August or September timeframe. And I set a new challenge for myself, which I think is emblematic of Vanta, setting new challenges, setting new goals for itself. But I ended up finishing at 713 miles last year. I tell you that last detailed mile because those last few miles were the hardest. I think it was on December 31st when I was trying to really raise the bar. But I think that is something I'm super proud of. And I was really happy I could bring it into Vanta because I am a part of Vanta and Vanta is a part of me. And then the separate thing is I love to plug my family. I love my family so much. I have 3 great kids. The fun fact there is that they were all born in the same week, 2 years apart. So my son Teddy is born April 20th. My daughter Millie is born April 20th. My son is born April 21st, and my other son is born April 25th.
Wow. A special month, special week for your family. Thank you for that.
Would you have a book selection for us? It doesn't have to be a business book. It might be something you escape with or something that challenged your thinking in one way or another. Anything come to mind?
Yeah, I when I'm not dealing with my 3 kids or helping Vanta scale, occasionally I have the opportunity to pick up a book. I think the book by Ben Horowitz, The Hard Thing About Hard Things, was really helpful for me. I read that book earlier in my career when I was thinking about org development, building teams, and also just company scaling. I think it was towards the end of my time at OpenDNS, and I was ready for that next adventure, which ended up being Menlo Security. And some of the key takeaways for me there were embrace the struggle. Building a business is inherently difficult. You're basically telling the world something should be done a way that it's never been done before. And so expecting challenges and learning to confront them head on is essential. Making tough decisions. So not all decisions are easy. it's important to make the difficult calls and stand behind them. Own those outcomes. Take a view, lead with your experience, tap into your resources, but own that outcome. The third one, which I think has really been helpful, is hire slow, fire fast. You always want to surround yourself with people who are talented and trustworthy. I think a lot about this analogy I bring to my team, which is called the jump ball. So in basketball, when there's a jump ball situation, 2 players are supposed to jump. And when an email comes in, there might be 2, 3, 4 people on the CC line. It's really important to jump in. Whether you're the right person or not the right person, help get that question, help get that query to the person who can answer it. And that is a jump ball. And so just being proactive, being responsive is really important to building a really great team. And then the final bit I would say is learn from your failure. So we make mistakes every single day. Mistakes are okay. It's important not to make the same mistake 2 times in a row. Just use them as a learning opportunity to improve, to adapt, and to be better.
Nice. Well, David, we're up to our final question. We're going to ask you to look forward finally, and we're curious about your priorities for the coming 12 months. What would those be as CFO of Vanta?
So my priorities over the next 12 months is a lot of company building. Thankfully, we just raised our $150 million Series C round at a $2.45 billion valuation. So we have sufficient capital to make the right investments, the right decisions as an organization. Over the next 12 months, I'm very much in the process of building the annual operating plan right now. So developing a plan that is supported from a tops down as well as a bottoms up perspective, something that we feel like is a stretch, but is achievable. It's always important to push yourself. And so we're looking at all the ratios across the business. We're understanding what the bottoms up quota capacity looks like, our attainment ratios or win rates, how we expect to see ACVs increase over time. So it's building a very, very comprehensive model. We're currently in the interlock stage of the annual operating plan. And so we're trying to create alignment between the different org leaders so that all the org leaders believe in the plan together and they're building models to go support those outcomes. And then after we finish the annual operating plan, we're going to look forward and finish building the 3-year plan. And then I would say the final piece is we're always trying to make ourselves better. And so we're really focused on how to enable the rest of the organizations to move very quickly. And so I call that creating a frictionless organization. There is an amazing, amazing CFO. I mentioned him at the start of this call, Bert Podbear at CrowdStrike. And he taught me the importance of being a CFGO. And so the CFGO is not a person who says yes to everything, but it's a person who can help enable companies to make the right investment decisions to then scale the organization. And so we're super focused on being CFGOs to help those companies, help those organizations scale.
David Eckstein, thank you for joining us on CFO Thought Leader.
Thanks for having me, Jack. See you next time.
Hello, everyone. Jack here. Hope you've been enjoying our recent episodes of CFO Thought Leader. Please know that I don't take for granted this opportunity to serve you. Your time is valuable, and of course, so is the time of our CFO guests. I'll admit to you on certain weeks, I will pinch myself and say, hey, I get to do this for a living. I speak to all these impressive leaders. Undoubtedly, there are more aggressive interviewers out there, some who leave no stone unturned. But our swim lane is for finance leaders only. And those finance leaders have a unique style of leadership, one that is rooted in the burden of trust. In light of this, finance leaders must take great care not to forfeit this trust as they step into the role of being a more expressive leader. And that is what CFO Thought Leader is really about. That's why I try to remind myself week in, week out, how fortunate I am. Still, I need your help. Tell us what we're doing right. Tell us what we're doing wrong. Email me your comments at jack@cfothoughtleader.com. And please visit cfothoughtleader.com. You'll find a listener survey right on the nav bar. As always, Thank you for listening.